welcome back to another one of our Bsaxpro testing videos. In this video I'm going to be checking out the Rovner product range. Specifically I'm going to be checking out all of the ligatures they do that are made up only of leather or fabric material. In this video I'm going to be checking out the following ligatures: the light, the dark, the Mark III, the Star series, and then the Van Gogh or Van Gogh if you're being particularly arty, and they're all ever so slightly different, so let's kind of check them out and then I'll give them a blast for you. I say ain't nothing you can do. So the first ligature we're going to check out is the Rovner Light. The Rovner Light is an entirely kind of leather ligature, and as you can see, if I turn my horn around, it's got this little band cut out of the leather. Now the idea there is it's going to allow your reed to vibrate more freely, and therefore you're going to get more of those kind of upper overtones, and it's going to push you into that brighter kind of spectrum. As usual with all the Rovner ligatures, you've got the classic Rovner kind of bar and screw at the top, which, as my colleague Lottie mentioned in one of the other videos we've been doing recently, you can swap them round, so whether you're right or left-handed doesn't really matter. I say ain't nothing you can do. So as you could hear, because it's got this little band out the middle, it gives you that really nice brighter tone. It's not too bright though, so it's going to blend really nicely, particularly if you're working in kind of sections. These are one of the ligatures I often recommend for my students. They're nice and cheap and cheerful, indestructible, and they give you a really even response throughout the horn. Are they going to blow you away? Probably not, but what you will find is they're going to give you a real kind of help along the way in terms of getting to control with the saxophone. As soon as you put metal into a ligature, then you'll find the reed vibrates more freely, and it's just harder to deal with when you're getting to grips with the saxophone. So if you're blending in a section, or you're a beginner player, definitely check out these ligatures. I say ain't nothing you can do. The dark and the light Rovners are really quite similar. Basically, the only difference is the amount of leather in the ligature. So with the light, we had a band taken out of the middle. With the dark, we don't. With the dark ligature, it should be, as kind of the name suggests, a little bit darker in tone. And I'm expecting it to be a little bit heavier as well in tone. I say ain't nothing you can do. So you could definitely hear that because we've got that extra band of leather material in the middle, it was kind of darker. Some of those upper overtones weren't as apparent. It also gives you kind of a weightier sound, a bit more meat in there, so that central core is a bit thicker and heavier. It's really easy to control, again, just like the light, so kind of top to the bottom of the horn, you get a really even response. It's going to work great for those of you who are playing in sections, particularly if you want a slightly darker sound. And again, this is one of the ligatures I often recommend for my beginner students because they are just so forgiving and they give you that helping hand along to get the saxophone under control. I say ain't nothing you can do. Now the Mark III is slightly different from the light and the dark ligatures because it has a double band of material. The idea there is that it's going to kind of hold the reed a little bit more firmly and should give you kind of extra weight to your sound. Other than that, it's basically identical, so it should be interesting to see how this performs. I say ain't nothing you can do. Right, okay, so that was pretty interesting. As you could hear, there was a definite kind of additional weight to my tone, and it was certainly on the darker side of the spectrum. What I found was it kind of disappeared those harmonics a bit more, so it gave me almost like a soft focus effect to my sound. That kind of strong central core that, you know, particularly the alto and maybe the soprano have, it didn't sound like it was there quite as much. So for me, this is going to work really well if you're playing kind of more classical musics, or if you're trying to blend in a wind band or symphonic band. What you'll probably find though is that that soft focus effect won't work quite as well for you when you're doing really precise articulations. So if you're playing lots of soli sections where you're having to do lots of complex rhythms, particularly if you're doing kind of Latin big bang charts or anything like that, then you'll find that this might make it a little bit harder work to make it sound really crisp and clean. Still really like the ligature though. It plays really even top to bottom, so it's going to work great for you beginners out there. And it definitely gets your reed under control. It takes those extra vibrations out. So for that, it's still a great kind of beginner ligature. I say ain't nothing you can do. The Star series is Rovner's kind of ligature that they say kind of really punches, gives you a brilliance. So there's a couple of reasons for this. It's got the same kind of material that the dark is made of, but it does feel a little bit thinner. The main thing you're going to notice is that it's got these lovely big resonating bars at the top. Now that is going to allow those kind of upper overtones to really sing and kind of punch out, and it should mean that you get a lovely kind of bright, sparkly, punchy tone. Anyway, let's give it a blast and see what it plays like. I say ain't nothing you can do. So that was the Star series. As you could see, it really punched out. It kind of reaches out and just kind of hits you in the face almost with how brilliant it is. I really like this ligature. It's got a real punch and a kind of character to it. I did find that it's not quite as easy to control as the Dark, the Light and the Mark III. The reason for that is you've got just less material on it, so it's not holding that reed back quite as much. So if you're a more kind of semi-pro or professional player, you'll probably like the way that this one responds, and I've really found that it allows like the upper registers, particularly the altissimo, to speak more freely, which is quite unusual for ligatures. Yeah, great ligature all round. Definitely one that I would have in my arsenal. I say ain't nothing you can do. Final one to check out is the Van Gogh or Van Gogh, depending on how you want to pronounce it. This one is a little bit new to me. I haven't come across this one before. I've seen it in the clarinet world, but I've never actually played it on the saxophone. So it's in many respects similar to the Mark III. So it's got a double band of material. But then in other ways it's quite different. So I'm expecting a little bit of extra weight to this sound, but as you can see here, we've got a little cutout. Now this goes onto the blank of the reed, that section of the reed that has kind of nothing cut out of it. So it's going to allow that heart to vibrate more freely. So I'm expecting to get more overtones off it. So maybe not so much that soft focus effect. And then finally, we've got these lovely big chunky bars at the top again. So that's going to help with resonance yet again. So yeah, I'm expecting this to be an interesting piece. It's worth saying that Rovner kind of tell us that this is a piece that does both bright and dark. It's kind of right in the middle of the road, depending on how you blow it. So let's see whether that's true. I say ain't nothing you can do. That was the Van Gogh. It's definitely an interesting piece. I really liked it. When I sat back more on it, it felt dark. There was kind of a nice kind of airy texture to the sound. But as soon as I pushed, it brightened up. So it seems a really versatile piece. I've got to be honest, I think this is my new favourite Rovner kind of all leather or material piece. It's really variable. It's going to work great for people playing in lots of different environments, and is also really blendable. Bear in mind though that this one does allow your saxophone to blow its own voice more freely. So it's going to work in a lot of different environments, but only if you have your horn under control. So if your chops aren't quite there yet, maybe look at getting either the light, the dark, or the Mark III. I say ain't nothing you can do. Let's just kind of summarize that for you. First of all, we're going to check out the light and the dark. Basically the same ligature. The light just has slightly less material on it. Really controllable, great for beginners. The light is a bit lighter, the dark is a bit darker. Name says it all really. Second, we have the Mark III. So the Mark III has that double band of material, so it's going to give you kind of more weight to your tone. Again, really controllable, great for beginners. It gives you a kind of soft focus effect though, so if you're looking for kind of really precise articulation, maybe not the one for you. And then finally, the two kind of slightly more interesting ones for me anyway, are the Star Series and the Van Gogh or Van Gogh. The Star Series is really, really punchy. It's the lightest of all of their kind of leather or fabric ligatures. It's got these nice resonant bars on there, so you get that real punch and kind of brilliant nature to your sound. The Van Gogh is kind of right in the middle of the road. It allows you to be both kind of bright and dark. Great piece. I'm a real big fan of this one actually. It's the first time I've played on one. And yeah, it's just very, very variable. But be aware with this piece and with this one, you need to have your chops together a little bit more because they don't offer you quite the same control. I say ain't nothing you can do, nothing